Hello everyone. In this video I will discuss one of the films called Warriors of Future, and never forget that I always pray for you and your family to be happy and healthy always. It is said that in the last century, technology in the world has experienced significant development, leading those in power to ambitiously bring their technology into the battlefield, which has continued to escalate since military robots were successfully created. Eventually, this ambition made humanity forget that excessive industrial development and natural disasters worsened the ecological impact of the wars they created. This gradually polluted the air, causing diseases and famine worldwide, even resulting in babies being born with terrible illnesses and children dying at a young age. In an attempt to restore the environment, local governments have tried to build giant domes designed to purify the air within them, and these domes came to be known as Skynet. However, during its construction process, a giant meteorite suddenly fell into the B16 residential district. The meteorite not only damaged the city, but also brought a type of giant plant that would continue to grow vigorously upon contact with water. Ironically, the plant, dubbed Pandora by scientists, had the ability to naturally purify the air on Earth. Tai Loi is an elite pilot from the Hong Kong military forces who lost his daughter due to a deadly disease caused by toxic air. Tai Loi works alongside his comrade-in-arms, Commander Johnson Chung, and a junior officer named Kwong, who at that time had a relationship with a communication officer named Lucy. One day, a colonel named Tam, sent by the Central Military Headquarters, arrived at Base B16 accompanied by several robot units. Her arrival was to meet with Major General Sean Lee, who not only held the highest position in Base B16, but was also the person behind the Skynet project. There, Colonel Tam, along with her scientists, explained that they had successfully developed a gen bullet capable of stopping the growth of Pandora without destroying it. By shooting this bullet directly into the heart of Pandora, they could not only stop the catastrophe, but also preserve Pandora's function of purifying the Earth's air. This mission had to be carried out immediately because, according to weather forecasts, 2 storms were approaching, which could make Pandora grow even larger. However, if this first mission failed, Colonel Tam would be forced to execute Plan B before the second storm arrived. This plan involved flying an Orca aircraft and dropping a nuclear bomb on Pandora, which would not only destroy Pandora, but also a large plantation, resulting in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of residents of the B16 district due to the explosion's impact. Upon hearing this, Johnson certainly objected to Plan B, especially after learning that the military also had no evacuation plan. However, Colonel Tam quickly reassured Johnson that it was better to lose hundreds of thousands than to lose millions of lives. After Sean Lee provided a chip that functioned to authorize the robots brought by Colonel Tam, they then went to the base pilots to provide a briefing on the task at hand. The pilots were asked to shoot a special bomb that would allow the headquarters to scan and locate Pandora's heart, then leave the rest of the task to the robots, who would fire the gen bullets. This prompted Tai Loi to protest because Colonel Tam did not have specific timing, duration, or knowledge of Pandora's reaction to the bomb, which put the pilots in a dangerous position that could threaten their lives. This sparked a debate between them, but Johnson quickly reassured Colonel Tam that Tai Loi was the best and most reliable pilot for this mission. Johnson also added that he rejected Plan B, so he would let his soldiers carry out this mission to completion. In short, the team finally arrived at Pandora, and the process of shooting the special bomb was successful, coinciding with the arrival of the first storm. However, as the team began to scan Pandora to locate its heart, they were confronted by the creeping plants of Pandora, which began to attack the aircraft. Fortunately, Tai Loi's aircraft, also carrying Kwong and Lincoln, only suffered damage to the fuel tank, giving Tai Loi enough time to maneuver quickly to evade the plant attacks and locate Pandora's heart, which was underground. Upon learning this, Colonel Tam immediately ordered the Orca aircraft to deploy 3 robots to continue the next steps. Unbeknownst to them, Sean Lee in his office deliberately took control of the robots and sabotaged the mission. He also intentionally blocked all communication signals in the area, preventing Tai Loi and his team in Pandora from interacting with the base. Consequently, Tai Loi's aircraft eventually ran out of fuel and crashed. In the process, Lincoln suffered serious injuries, prompting Tai Loi and Kwong to rush him to the nearest abandoned hospital to search for remaining medical supplies. Meanwhile, at the base, Colonel Tam, assuming that all teams had failed, intended to launch Plan B. But Johnson quickly stopped her, as the second storm had not arrived yet. Therefore, Johnson voluntarily suggested that he would take the Gen bullets to Pandora's heart using an armored vehicle. With no other choice, Colonel Tam agreed to this plan, but she only gave Johnson 3 hours to complete his mission. Afterward, Colonel Tam, while examining with Lucy, found that the weather officer detected an electrical current of more than 70,000 volts when the team disappeared from the radar. This discovery raised suspicions that it might be caused by a lightning storm, but Colonel Tam was not quick to accept this explanation because lightning could not simultaneously disable many aircraft. Therefore, she instructed Lucy to conduct further investigation into the truth behind this incident. Sometime later, Johnson arrived in his car at the settlement area near District B-16 to meet a man named Skunk, a former military member. Johnson asked Skunk to assist in his mission in exchange for numerous food coupons and promised to hand over the car he brought after the mission was completed. Not forgetting, Johnson also returned the special weapon that Skunk favored most when he was still in the unit. On the other hand, Tai Loi, along with Kwong and Lincoln, finally arrived at an abandoned hospital. Tai Loi then asked Kwong to accompany Lincoln while he himself went to search for medical supplies. Not long after, hearing strange noises, Lincoln convinced Kwong to better check on him, while Tai Loi, reaching the pharmacy, accidentally found a rabbit doll that instantly reminded Tai Loi of his deceased child. At the same time, Tai Loi, hearing the strange noises, attempted to communicate with Kwong. Unfortunately, this communication from Tai Loi was immediately detected by Johnson's car, which promptly instructed Skunk to move to the signal's location. Along with this, Tai Loi was suddenly attacked by strange insect-like creatures bred from Pandora. At the same time, Kwong was also shocked to find Lincoln's body being consumed by the strange creatures, prompting Kwong to flee after the creatures turned to pursue him. However, in the end, Kwong managed to save himself by hiding inside the cooler unit in the morgue. Meanwhile, Johnson, who had located Tai Loi, immediately shared this information with Lucy at the base before using his mechanical suit to enter the hospital. On the other hand, Tai Loi accidentally discovered the presence of a little girl named Pansy, who had almost become prey to the aliens. Tai Loi then fled with the girl through the corridors, and Johnson arrived to rescue them. Johnson quickly reported the discovery of these strange creatures to the Central Command, but unfortunately, the message only reached Sean Lee. After meeting with Kwong and receiving the bad news about Lincoln, Johnson quickly contacted Skunk to ask for his help in finding an escape route, while continuing to fend off the aliens chasing them. With his special weapons, Skunk successfully cleared a path for Tai Loi, Johnson, Kwong, and Pansy to escape. Once they were safe inside the car, Kwong immediately sent the new Pandora location scanner to Lucy, which greatly relieved her upon learning that her lover was still alive. Lucy requested that Kwong return safely. Meanwhile, Colonel Tam was engaged in an argument with Sean Lee, who continued to push for the execution of Plan B. However, thanks to the information from Kwong's scanner, this provided Colonel Tam with an opportunity to stall for more time, although Sean Lee threatened to dismiss her if Plan B was delayed. Meanwhile, Johnson asked Skunk to drive to the wreckage of the Orca aircraft to retrieve the Gen bullet. This decision made Tai Loi hesitate because they couldn't be sure if the Gen bullet was still intact, and the area was also very dangerous, so there was no guarantee of their safety. This also sparked a new argument between Tai Loi and Skunk, reminding them of the past, where Skunk was asked to resign for not following orders, even though Skunk had to do it to ensure the team's survival from what he considered a suicide mission. However, in the end, they decided to follow Johnson's plan because the lives of 160,000 residents of District B-16 were at stake if Plan B were to be executed. In short, as they approached the accident location, Kwong managed to detect a signal from the box containing the Gen bullet, indicating that the bullet was still intact. They then sent a drone to confirm the location of the Gen bullet under the rubble of the building. At the same time, Lucy covertly provided information to Kwong about the previous signal blocking, which turned out to originate from one of the robots. Therefore, Kwong decided to join the mission to retrieve the Gen bullet, prompting Johnson to ask Tai Loi to stay in the car to accompany and comfort Pansy, who appeared very frightened. The girl pleaded with Tai Loi not to leave her because she had just lost her mother. This expression immediately reminded Tai Loi of his deceased daughter, prompting him to promise not to leave Pansy. On the other hand, Johnson and Kwong carefully navigated through the crumbling building crevices, and because the drone marked the location above them, which was difficult to reach, Johnson asked Kwong to wait below while he attempted to climb up with the help of his mechanical suit. Unfortunately, at one point his thruster malfunctioned, almost causing Johnson to fall from a height with only the tip of his gun to hold onto. Luckily, Tai Loi suddenly appeared to save him. Together, they continued their search, and eventually found the Gen bullet inside a car perched precariously on a pipe, ready to fall at any moment. Johnson then used a fire hose to carefully lower Tai Loi into the car, and they managed to retrieve the Gen bullet just before the car fell into the abyss. Meanwhile, Kwong found a grenade pin near a robot carcass, indicating that this robot was likely the one responsible for sabotaging the mission, so he hurried to remove the robot's head. At the same time, Johnson and Tai Loi fought desperately against the incoming aliens while running towards Kwong. Unfortunately, their actions accidentally caused a car to fall, nearly hitting Kwong if they hadn't stopped it in time. Along with this, Skunk also suddenly appeared to help them fight the aliens and open an escape route as quickly as possible because the buildings around them were slowly collapsing. After successfully getting out and returning to the car, Kwong immediately connected the robot's head he brought to his computer, and this made them realize that someone had intentionally sabotaged the mission. Initially, Tai Loi accused Colonel Tam of doing this, but Johnson quickly dismissed the accusation and became more suspicious of Sean Lee, who didn't want to lose the Skynet construction business if the first mission succeeded. Ultimately, this suspicion proved true after Kwong managed to trace the signal controlling the robot back to Sean Lee's office. Johnson immediately contacted Sean Lee to ask him to stop, but Sean Lee refused and was determined to proceed with Plan B because destroying Pandora would ensure the continuation of the Skynet construction business. Additionally, Sean Lee reactivated the remaining robots to block the signal and try to stop Johnson and his team from injecting the Gen bullet into Pandora. Colonel Tam, realizing that the signal from Johnson's car had disappeared, announced that if they couldn't communicate within the next 30 minutes, Plan B would have to be executed. Meanwhile, Skunk quickly drove his car to the Pandora's pit location, and Tai Loi immediately hid Pansy in a safe place just before the first robot sent by Sean Lee found their whereabouts. The team tried their best to take down the robot, but unfortunately, all the bullets they fired seemed to have little effect, and this was further exacerbated by the arrival of 3 other robots leaping onto the car. Skunk had no choice but to take the risk of ramming his car into the first robot. This caused damage to the robot's armor, which the team immediately exploited to bring it down. Next, Tai Loi climbed onto the car to try to knock down the other 3 small robots, but one of the robots broke in through the back door while throwing a bomb into the driver's seat. Fortunately, Skunk quickly asked Pansy to throw the bomb out of the car. Then Johnson and Tai Loi fought desperately to defeat the remaining robot, using only their mechanical suits, which were slowly running out of power. Unfortunately, after successfully defeating the 3 robots, the first robot suddenly reappeared, releasing a missile that instantly caused the bridge in front of the car to collapse. Nevertheless, Skunk managed to land the car on the other side of the bridge. However, their efforts became even more challenging because the first robot was hanging behind the car, trying to bring them down. This left Johnson with no choice but to hand over the Gen bullet to Tai Loi and then exit the car to try to detach the robot from the vehicle. For a moment, the team mourned the sacrifice of Johnson, unaware that Johnson was actually still alive. Meanwhile, at the base, Colonel Tam was preparing to launch Plan B, and Sean Lee activated his strongest robot to continue the pursuit. Fortunately, Lucy, who detected the signal from the previous robot, quickly reported this to Colonel Tam to prove that the mastermind behind the mission sabotage was Sean Lee. On the other hand, Tai Loi handed the bullet to Kwong and hid Pansy in a safe place before asking Kwong to move quickly while he and Skunk would face the final robot. In his efforts, Skunk became a distraction while Tai Loi tried to climb onto the robot to destroy its signal blocker, instantly allowing the people at the base to regain signal and realize that they were still alive. This gave Colonel Tam a reason to confront Sean Lee, who still wanted Plan B to be carried out. While Tai Loi and Skunk were still desperately facing the final robot, Kwong was shot in the leg by another smaller robot. Fortunately, he had managed to create a hole leading to the Pandora's core before saving himself where Pansy was hiding. Unfortunately, Tai Loi was eventually defeated when his mechanical suit ran out of power. In addition to this, the large robot launched an attack on Pansy's hiding place, instantly destroying it. Remembering his deceased daughter and the promise he made to Pansy, Tai Loi's anger erupted, and he immediately destroyed the small robot using the car door. Meanwhile, Skunk also managed to bring down the last robot using his special weapon. However, at that moment, the second storm arrived, and the Pandora's creeping plants began to grow and spread even more. This left no choice but to immediately launch the second Orca aircraft to drop bombs to destroy Pandora before it spread further. However, Colonel Tam chose not to obey Sean Lee's orders and immediately requested the second Orca aircraft to postpone its mission. On the other side, Tai Loi was surprised by Johnson's arrival, who was still alive, along with Pansy and Kwong, who had also managed to save themselves from the previous robot attacks. Johnson immediately headed to the core of Pandora, where he found hundreds of alien eggs and other strange creatures. Right after he threw the Gen bullet into the core, Pandora immediately entered hibernation mode, neutralizing all creatures and growth, just as the creeping plants began to reach the residential area of District B16. The spread of Pandora had been successfully stopped, and everyone at the base and in the settlement district soon celebrated because now the air could be purified naturally without the threat of Pandora's growth. At that moment, Colonel Tam was preparing to capture Sean Lee, but on the way to his office, gunshots were heard. Sean Lee chose to end his life rather than live without the Skynet he boasted about. 1 week later, Skunk was finally reinstated in the military and decided to change his hairstyle to look similar to Johnson's. After that, Tai Loi, along with Skunk, received another mission to travel into space to observe the mysterious signal source coming from the moon, and the film ended. And that's it for the story series of this film. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to support this channel by subscribe, like and share. See you in the next video. Goodbye.